Yeah. Aye.
Okay, this is Joe Valentine. This is the regular meeting of the ad hoc committee, ad hoc community center building. And today, if you're listening on a delayed tape, today is Monday, December 11th. I'll call the meeting to order, and although it doesn't call for it, everyone should introduce themselves. And John, if you could start, and we'll work around this way.
John Copeless, project manager from Colliers Project Leaders.
AJ Miller, member of the committee.
Joe Valentine, chair of the committee.
Ann Kelly, member of committee.
John Lamoranti, member of the committee.
Joe Paradiso, committee member.
I'm Al Goldberg, the liaison from the Board of Selectmen to this committee.
Bill Stableford, member of the public.
Austin Hall, Director of Beach and Recreation.
And missing today is Dave Spurley. He's the vice chair of the committee.
And Joan Mahoney.
And, oh, sorry, Joe. Apologize.
So Joan Walker, member of the committee, and then Caroline.
And I'm Carolina Hernandez with Q&M Architecture. I'm in for Tom and Brian.
Thank you.
She's got the hot seat tonight.
The new agendas still call for Pledge of Allegiance. So. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First business item on the agenda is the approval of prior minutes from November 28th. Does anyone have any comments or changes to them?
Move to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Not fair, okay. Jeannie, I'll have to give you a shout out, for this is the first time I believe we've had minutes without any corrections. So thank you. The next item is chair's comments. And I wanted to, in this case, I wanted to add something to the agenda. I don't think this is appropriate under chair's comments, but I've lined up the due dates for some of the deliverables from QA&M, and I've lined them against our due dates and our meeting dates rather, and they don't, some of them just don't line up right. So I'd like to add Joan, help me. Would this be a new business if we?
It's new. What do you want to do?
I want to discuss it and move meetings if possible.
Okay, so we're going to open the agenda to item number 12A. And I will move to open the agenda to item number 12A to discuss future meetings so they coincide with or in lockstep with deliverables from either the project management, from any of the project management team members. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
I'll second opening the agenda.
All approved?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll add 12A to Joan's comment. Thank you, Joan.
Mhm.
And other than that, I have no other comments. Liaison, Al?
Two quick items, Mr. Chairman. Federal Congress still has not passed a budget, so there's no update on a possible grant to us. I thought we put that on your to-do list, Joe, was to get this passed.
I'll just call my friend, Dick and
The second item is, there was a town meeting, I believe, last week to go over an appropriation for the geothermal project here at town campus. There weren't a sufficient number of citizens that came out for there to be a quorum, so no votes were taken. But about 80 people came out, and this is strictly my opinion. I think about half the folks came out and were concerned about the cost of the appropriation. I think the other half came out to learn more about geothermal projects and what does it mean. And I think the folks that came to learn about geothermal projects left with a very positive view based on the presentation that took place. I don't know whether the folks who were concerned about the dollar amount of the appropriation had their mind changed. There's just no way to know. No vote was taken. So I just thought I'd share that with the group, Joe, that sometimes projects do go to town meeting and hard to know what will happen with them.
So when there's no quorum, that doesn't mean automatic passing. That means no vote.
No, under our charter, whatever the selectmen recommend to the town meeting is what happens if there's no quorum. The selectmen recommended approval of the appropriation. And because there was no quorum, it means that recommendation was by default approved.
Oh.
But also one other piece of that step is that the Board of Finance also approved it. If the Board of Finance did not approve it, it would not have gone to a town meeting. So it's both elected boards approved. Therefore, that's what it went, so.
And I guess, Joan, as I understand, it was passed unanimously by both boards.
Okay. Next item, review and approve invoice packet if applicable.
No invoice packet.
And,
No invoices?
but budget line item transfers. Okay. Collier's update. John?
They'll probably defer to the new business items, because a couple things that we'll be talking about are under new business. So outside of ongoing activities and proposals and things, anything else to add at this point?
Okay. And QA&M update?
Hi, we've been moving as planned. We're moving forward full speed with the DD estimate set. We are on track for submission next Friday, December 21st or 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. We've been meeting on a weekly basis with our MEP consultants. We also have a meeting with the fire marshal this week and with the civil and landscape just for coordination. So yeah, everything is moving as smooth as possible.
Now, the date of the 22nd of this month, December 22nd. And when you say the DD, well, I have it down as DD estimates. I think you said down as DD submission. But what action does this committee, or what's the follow-up action to that, after that date? I know Christmas is the follow-up action, but the 25th. But what's the follow-up to that?
Well, we are going to submit for the estimator, so it will be in his hands after that date. And I believe I'm not sure if they'll look at it throughout the holidays, but they'll have the package in their hands, so they can start with that work.
The building committee does not need to take any action at that point. Just to clarify maybe your question.
That was part of the question.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, no.
What happens next?
The package gets submitted to the estimators, QAM's estimator, and ultimately the estimator that hopefully is chosen tonight in the meeting. And then they will both be working on that package to submit that pricing later in January, and then that's when the building committee comes into play with respect to the review of that at that time.
Now, from the last meeting, I have the 16th of January as the time that
The due date, I think, is the 16th
of January. And then the 12th of February is between that 16th of January and the 12th of February, that's when the reconciliation goes place?
To review the reconciliation, value engineering assessment, things of that nature based on the numbers that come back in are done over those next couple of weeks. And then that final resolution after that reconciliation is presented to the building committee. And then, the discussion and decisions go from there to, assess the numbers, the costs that have come in, and then ultimately to proceed to the CD set of documentation. Construction documents, should clarify.
What has been deferred to 12A is what would, and we don't have to talk about it now, because it'll be 12. What would be the optimum meeting dates for the committee to facilitate the process moving through smoothly? And I know we've got certain dates set up, but are they optimum? Should we be meeting sooner? Should we be meeting later? For instance, do we have to meet on the 19th of December? Would there be any actions that would be required then? But again, we could move that to 12. That's what in the chair's comments, that's what I was getting at.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I guess maybe I'm the chair again. Austin, you look perplexed.
No, just listening,
Are you sure?
positive.
Okay.
That's his normal look.
It's my
That's
face.
normal.
Just perplexed.
If you had, if you needed to, if you needed a clarification or anything, I would certainly open the floor up at the moment. Okay. Anything else from QA now?
No,
This is our first opportunity for public comment. Is there any public on the feed, on the Zoom?
Here's one.
If you're listening and you're if you'd like to make any comments now, you please raise your hand on the literally or not figuratively raise your hand using the Zoom. Okay. Anything, Bill?
Thank you, no.
Okay. And Austin? No? Okay. New business. Discussion and vote to select a cost estimating firm. John, you had passed this out.
Correct.
Could you please elaborate?
Sure. So I sent the package previously to Jeannie for posting, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at 3 proposals that were received. There were a couple of firms that I did reach out to specifically that Colliers at least has worked with in the past. Unfortunately, they were not available to provide a proposal for this RFP. So we did receive 3 bids. They are from Gardner and Theobald, from Keys Group, and from PMC. And I have created a comparison analysis spreadsheet that was also sent out previously, provided copies here tonight. And you'll notice, I'm sure, what jumps out is that the 3 proposals, 2 of them are close and relatively high compared to the 3rd proposal that was submitted. What I can speak to, both Keys and PMC, Colliers has worked with in the past. And Keys has actually done a number of projects for us associated with some private school ventures. I am not familiar with the firm out of New York, but I'm sensing that some of this may be due to their locations. And one thing I did notice, I don't know if you caught this, but in the proposals, their hourly rates were, double what, the rates were for the Keys group. So, part of it is, the hourly rates. I also think and sense, I did not ask this directly, but I sense that Keys, I think did some research as far as looking into the site itself. And were a little bit more familiar with what was being requested. I sense that the other two firms may be, thinking this is a much more involved or elaborate project, which is why their numbers are, reflected in the way that they are. Again, we have worked with, two of the three firms and have done several projects with the Keys group and have had very good experience with them. So bottom line, obviously based on the numbers, I think we would recommend the Keys group. I don't think there should be a concern that their number is so much lower than the other two, but I think they are capable certainly of performing this work and providing the services necessary for the two phases.
John, did
Yes,
they
sir.
all include the reconciliation?
Yes. Yeah, both reconciliation at the DD design development phase and the construction document phase. Correct.
John, I was confused when I was reading through them. Some of them had talked about MEP work and some did not. Do all of them include the MEP estimation as well?
Yes,
Okay.
it's all inclusive.
Okay.
In your experiences with Keys, have their estimates come in relatively close to where the final?
Yes, their numbers have come very close. They've been very consistent with the second estimator that's that they're being reconciled with. And again, we've had good experience with them and have not had any reason not to consider them in the past, and certainly in this instance we feel that they are capable of performing the service.
For any of them, have you had experience where their estimates were off from the original estimator? And how was that reconciled?
There was PMC has at times been a little bit high on things. They're out of the Boston area, so I don't know if it was based on using some of the wrong labor rates or associated costs for certain things, but we had noticed that I think it was just on one project where they were a little bit higher than ultimately should have been the case, but they are, they're a good firm. It's a big firm, but they have had some experience with us. Again, Keys, we have out of these three worked with the most.
I've been involved in a project with the Keys group as well. Very pleased with what they did, and that the fee is more or less in line, given that several years have passed.
Out of curiosity, the two no bids, did they supply any additional information?
The Tarbell group that I reached out to, they just had a conflict because they have a litigation that they have to be presenting at, not their firm, but with associated with a project that they are had estimated. So that is in January. So he did not feel that he'd be able to provide us with the proper effort and time on that. The other one, no, I did not receive anything back from.
Is there any further discussion? Can we move to a vote? Somebody,
I'll move to approve Keys Group Limited, LTD as the the second cost estimator.
Second,
any further discussion? In favor?
Aye.
And John, you'll contact them?
Yes, I'll follow up with him.
I didn't get this from, is there a time when they present to us? When we meet with I mean, they work for us, right? So
Yes, I mean, they're
they're in our employ.
Correct.
When will we see them? What will they do before we see them? Is that,
Well, to be honest, you don't necessarily see them. They will be receiving the design development documentation that Carolina had referenced. Those on the 22nd will be sent to them, and then they will be doing their estimating process. And then once we schedule the reconciliation meeting, I mean, it's a virtual meeting with both QA&M's estimator and the estimator from Keys. And certainly, we can invite anybody else that wants to sit in on it. It's, a good, probably 5-6 hour meeting,
gee,
but.
how will we keep people away?
But that would, yeah, I know, but that would be a brief meeting between the two estimators, ourselves and QA&M. And then the various sub-consultants for QA&M will typically join in at specific intervals of that meeting. There's, pretty much an hour time slot for each of the trades where, that piece of the estimate is discussed and reviewed. So, the MEP engineer will jump in for, that time frame. This civil engineer, landscaping, et cetera. So they would partake in those discussions while that part of the reconciliation meeting occurs. After that is concluded, we then take and do a spreadsheet of those costs, and that is something that we would share with the building committee. And potential value engineering is also something that is looked at and considered. As far as actually the estimators presenting anything to this group in person, that's typically not done. It's something that Colliers facilitates and addresses. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
One less meeting is not good answers. Right.
I'm curious, does Keys visit the site or do they just go based on the package they receive?
They may visit the site, but to be honest, it's likely that they would go based on the drawings. They may Google, which I think they already did, to be honest. I think they got a little bit more background on the existing conditions, I think, than the other two estimators. But they may come out to look at it, but typically the estimators don't find the need to visit the site. It depends, I should say, also on the scope of the project. It's a huge building on a campus or something that they need to get a sense as to what exactly is associated with some of the demolition or that
So
type
the
of
current
scope.
Condition really doesn't enter into the estimates.
I'm sorry, the what?
The current condition.
Current condition, usually they can get what they need off of the drawings. A lot of times there is no need to visit the site. They do these estimates, all over the country, some of, so it's, not feasible for them to visit sites, but I think based on the experience, their past history with various projects, building types, they have a sense as to what's, expected, the age of the building as well, comes into play with respect to some of that estimating process. But usually they don't go to visit the site.
Is there typically any accountability on the estimates that are provided by the estimator, that they're guaranteed to be within a certain?
No,
Or-
you're not going to get a guarantee from them.
Yeah.
The point of doing the reconciliation is having at least those two numbers to be able to compare and contrast and to get a sense through that reconciliation meeting for the two estimators to talk about, okay, this is why, I have this number there. Why do you have that number? Did you miss something, or did I overlook, a quantity or anticipated, area that may or may not be, clearly shown on the drawings. But it's not something that they are bound by, by that number. But ultimately, in the end, with the reconciliation, the back and forth between the estimators, you end up getting pretty good numbers and tight to the point where you're comfortable knowing, where you're at in order to proceed to that next stage.
Okay, so maybe asked a different way. If we're in the middle of construction, a hypothetical situation where there's some gross oversight, right? And now it's gonna cost the town hundreds of thousands of dollars to rectify. What does that workflow look like to sort of figure out what the responsible party is?
If it's something that extreme, to be honest, that's usually something that's an unknown condition, which would not have been something that would have been documented in the drawings. If it's that large of a number, it's going to be something that would have been picked up typically in the drawings. Now, Carolina, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but the odds of the two estimators, totally missing something of a six-figure, significant six-figure amount is incredibly rare, and I'm not sure if I've even been familiar with that happening.
I'm asking because I was
much
just reading about the other center that's being built in Madison. They seem to have an issue, and I was curious what that process looked like. Sometimes it's the drawings that were inaccurate to the site conditions, and there was a failure somewhere there. Sometimes there was misinterpretation, but it sounds like if there's an error like that, it's typically something was missed in the drawing phase or in the engineering phase of the project more than it would be in the estimating. The higher likelihood is that there's something.
It's not something that was not included within the documents.
Right, or there's something in the site that no one could have anticipated.
Right, yeah, a buried, tank or, contaminated soils or something to that effect that, may not be reflected on the drawings, but that is something, that comes into play with the geotech, studies and things where you're doing those tests in that aspect. But usually it is something that is within the documents that is missed, to be honest. I mean, it's something, the estimator has that full package, the specs and the drawings. So they are basing their numbers off of what they are looking at and what's presented to both phases, the design development and the construction document stage.
I think to John's point, what you were getting at, do you feel that the original estimate took well into consideration the existing condition of the building, deterioration, and that kind of work that needs to be done, and that Keys is aware of existing conditions?
I don't know that answer, Joe, as far as how much they are aware of the existing conditions. I mean, the proposal, did not get into detail or depth as far as.
It might be worth encouraging to do something. I think that's what yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
It might be probably 3 hours away.
I don't know if it's that much, to be honest.
It might be worth it just for our own peace of mind.
Or even just a video walkthrough.
Oh, maybe even that.
Someone could send.
I mean, I'm not sure.
I hate to get to the point where a structural issue pops up and no one thought about it, but someone else can come in and say that concrete's buckling. Has anyone considered this structural steel? I don't think that's the case. I'm just making that up, but another set of eyes. If we're paying for another set of eyes, a fresh set of eyes, might be worth it.
I mean, I don't
It's an
know.
extra $500.
I was going to say, I don't know where that estimator is going to be, based out of,
Yeah.
located. I mean, he could be local, he could be, a couple hours away, but, that's something I can certainly follow up with him on.
And they'll probably say it's not necessary, but I think it's a peace of mind for us.
And if they do want a video walkthrough,
It's possible.
happy to do. Send it to them.
And while we're sort of on that subject, when does the hazardous material abatement start? Because that's not part of, doesn't appear to be part of this or the or the construction manager. And I know that it's gonna be handled by Fuss and O'Neill.
Usually a demo,
Pardon?
usually for this a demo.
That's the first stage of the construction phase where the demolition and abatement work is done.
But that's after all this reconciliation is finished.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
that's,
because we already have a GC. But I'm thinking of the unknowns. I mean, that's the first place, I mean, other than a buckling wall, that's the first place we're gonna see serious unknowns, if they
and
exist.
ironically, Fuss and O'Neill is coming out to the site on Wednesday to start some of their site work, so, or site investigation, I should say.
Someone was at the site today. They looked like they were taking soil samples.
That may have occurred.
I didn't go over, I was at church, so I could see them from across the way, but I did not.
They were there on Thursday. We
Yeah,
dug test bits on Thursday.
Okay.
Okay,
I mean, that would be, yeah, something that's, through QA&M. I don't know if Carolina, you have more information on that?
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, our civil engineer said that he was there last week, doing more soil investigations. From what I know, I don't know about today's.
it didn't look like anybody playing baseball up there. It wasn't a good baseball day. There's still a lot of moisture out there. Anything else, John?
No, not on cost estimate.
Any other questions from the? Okay. So 11's complete. We've had the discussion. We're going to proceed with Keys Group Limited at their bid price. John, you're going to handle that.
Yes, I'll follow up. Discussion and vote to proceed with the posting of the RFQRP for the commissioning agent services. And John, you want to explain it first and then maybe open up for any questions?
Sure. So this was also distributed to the committee. And this is the next RFP in line, if you will, that is associated with the commissioning agent for the project. This RFP, if approved tonight, hopefully the town will look at posting this sometime this week, tomorrow, Wednesday, whatever day that works for Aaron and in the town. This has been reviewed by the town's lawyer. So those comments have been incorporated into this updated draft version. The one comment that is underlined on page 5, intentionally underlined, I should say, or highlighted, is just because Colliers does provide this service, if this is something that the town would want to pursue. And if so, the lawyer did recommend slightly different wording to that, but that is something that we do have commissioning services and can bid on this. However, there was the potential concern, conflict of interest, obviously. So if we do include that wording in the RFP, some clients have chosen to pursue having Colliers submit a price. Others have opted to not do that. So that's why it's highlighted, and I'll defer to the committee as to whether or not that's something that you want to consider. But this is a, oh, sorry.
For educational purposes for the public, what is a commissioning agent so that everyone can understand what we're going for here?
Certainly. Commissioning agent is a company that will oversee and assist with essentially the MEP, the mechanical engineering plumbing components of a project. And what they will do is confirm that at the end of the project, everything is working, the heat is on, the cooling is on, The mechanical systems are operating ideally and ultimately the way they were designed, that the selected systems by the mechanical engineer are appropriate for the building. They will partake in some of the design discussions and assist with that process. They will at times weigh in on the specifications that are being provided from QA&M. They will also provide documentation throughout the construction process. They will be there on site overseeing the work activity, partaking in meetings, discussions, confirming that, again, the systems that are being proposed in the design and ultimately selected are ideal for that building type and the building usage. I think in a nutshell, Joan?
Somewhere here, I think it says that they're required once a month to be on site.
I think that's how it was worded. It's something where you can have them on a weekly basis, but I think that's a little bit excessive, and it also impacts the price. So trying to keep it realistic with respect to the project itself and the budget available. That is the wording for now, at least.
And I think it said there was also additional visits at additional costs.
Yes, I mean, there is a line item where they can put in an hourly rate for additional site visits. If that's something that wants to be considered at a later date, that cost is submitted up front, so there's no, surprises or being able to change that rate and or cost associated with additional site visits when the construction process begins.
So when they say once a month, do they mean once a calendar month or 30, well, let's say this is a 15-month project or 18-month project. Does that mean 18 visits?
So it'd be, yes, 18 visits if.
But not necessarily monthly, because some months may need more visits than others.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's something that, it's going to be determined as the, construction proceeds and as the project, continues with respect to whether, they need to be on site, more often than not. They typically are not there right off the bat. So, first month or two, there's no need to have them on site. So, those 2 months of site visits can get deferred so that you can have potentially, 2 and 1 month later on in the project.
Doesn't seem to be worded that way.
It says monthly or as necessary, so that could be
I
more
think
or
it's
less.
I think
Oh,
there's
that's how we're.
Well, I mean, it
interpreting
can
that.
be more or less, right? So if they show up 5 times as necessary, if they show up 20 times as necessary. That's how that's how
I
I
just
I read it differently, like the monthly visits are optional. We'll perform monthly visits as
that way
needed,
too.
right? You could say, well, we didn't need to this month, so we didn't go. But there's no credit towards future months necessarily.
I just want to be sure we're getting adequate coverage.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what, this whole thing's going in that direction. Is the wording correct so that we get adequate coverage when we need it?
I believe so, yes. I mean,
There's
there's
no additional
I
cost to
crossed out
the
as
town, right?
necessary. I just like that, I crossed out as necessary, just like it is monthly. But it's gonna be on them, it behooves them to be on site to make sure systems are being installed properly. So then they don't come to the end and say, why isn't this working? Well, you weren't here and all that kind of stuff. But
Does anybody hold insurance here? I mean, if something doesn't work, I mean, obviously if someone's hurt, there's liability insurance. But if things are late or if something's not working, who holds the insurance or is there insurance held on it? I mean, or are there penalties, for instance? I know we're not at the GC phase yet,
I would say
but
that's
there are
something
daily
that-
penalties. Some contracts have daily penalties, some have insurance.
Yeah, that's all gonna be involved or incorporated with the GC selection in their contract. So as far as, material delays, things of that nature, that comes into play with respect to the GC contract. And, they may, certainly take exception to certain things depending on how things are worded. And vice versa, the town could take exception to, what the GC is looking to, propose or submit to. So that all comes into play when that contract is final.
So who holds the insurance?
The insurance on,
It's not insurance, it's more like liability.
yeah, I say it's a,
Well, okay, because
I'm not sure the question.
so there can be late penalties. If there's a firm completion date, we could put a penalty clause into the GC if we wanted.
You could,
Okay.
although at time, typically, if you're going to put in a penalty clause, then they will look to have an award clause to say, well, if we get done before the proposed completion date, then, we'd like to be entitled to, some
Okay.
kind of, credit back, if you will. So, yes, but.
So so what about this, this agent, the construction agent that we're talking about? Commissioning agent, I'm sorry. What happens if they miss something? We come to the end and the heat doesn't work. Or we turn it on and it's inadequate for the building.
We find out 6 months later that it's
Yeah.
not performing. Everyone left after the ribbon cutting and now.
Well, they are still involved up to, I think it's a year or so afterwards, doing follow-up reports, inspections and things. So once the building is completed, you move in, it's not like they're gone because they're still monitoring things
Okay.
up to, I think it's 12 months.
Starting at the bottom of page 10, got it?
Yeah.
It's the commissioning process during the occupancy and operations phase. That speaks to some of those issues.
What's important is they're also involved, not throughout the entire process, but at the end of design development, construction documents. They're also there providing a review. So they're a second set of eyes to say, is the domestic hot water system sized right? Is the heating and cooling system sized right? So it's just another set of eyes to say yes. So hopefully when we get to that end point, we have hot water in the building. We're not talking about
On all
how come there's no
floors.
hot water coming out of the
Flush
sink.
all
the
the-
toilet and out, there's no
Yeah.
water.
Yeah,
Because
in all
the
the
design
bathrooms.
engineers were there, the commissioning agent was there. But at the end of it, the commissioning agent went through all of it to make sure it was sized right, it was installed right, it's operating the way. it should. And then sometimes you do get to the end of a project and something's just not working. Then you do have to go back, unfortunately, you have to figure out what
Who's
happened and where. Is it the equipment? Was it a poor design, an error of omission? Did something get changed in the whole design throughout the project? Did we add an extra bathroom or moved the bathroom to the other end of the building? It's a mess when that happens, but it does happen.
Okay.
But that's why it's important to have the commissioning agent.
Yes.
Right.
That's why I'm asking the questions now, because I don't want to be there. I don't want to be sitting in the bathroom with no hot water.
Yeah.
That's the, and I don't want any of the people who are in there have an experience that's not less than optimal. Whether it's heat, whether it's water, whether it's whatever.
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
as far as the insurance goes, it has requirements in Appendix A, but there's no listing of the requirements in Appendix A.
The,
I think I had to say basic.
that's the base, it's the town's insurance requirements is what that's referring to, Joe.
So is that going to be put into this RFP prior to it going out?
Yes.
It's blank right now.
It's one of the appendices.
Right, and the appendices is blank is my point.
Oh, those were attached, I thought those were attached as separate PDFs when I sent this out. But yes, that will be, all those appendices will be part of that RFP when that goes out.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's like they're placeholders and then it was like, okay, and then it's even listed in the actual RFP as noted in this document. And I was like, it's not there. So,
Yes.
okay.
No, I did confirm with Aaron as to the standard town requirements for the insurance coverages. So that is the document that will be attached.
Okay, great. Thank you.
John, a quick question. I just want to clarify. It's on page 11, it lists the geothermal as an add alternate.
As an add alternate.
Mhm.
But in the 2023 estimate that we got, it wasn't listed as an alternate. It wasn't one of the 5 that was listed. So is it considered an alternate from our perspective then? It certainly is on the value engineering
It's
list.
on the value engineering list, but it was a specific line item added by the town. So if you look at our budget, there's a specific line item for geothermal with a dollar number next to it. That was a late add. That wasn't original. So I think we have to consider it as an add alternate. But I'm not sure we can either say yes, 100% yes, or 100% no to it for this building.
So is it out of scope then for the commissioning agent contract? It would be
It
additional
could be.
cost for additional.
Yes, I mean, yeah, there is a proposal bid form, Don, and on that, at the bottom, there is a separate line item for the costs associated with the geothermal, so that if it is pursued, then we know what their associated costs for that would be. If it's not, then obviously that just gets deducted
So
from
they'll
the
provide that as
cost.
part of their bid. but
It is
won't
part of it.
necessarily be a part of the base package.
Correct.
Maybe why not?
Yeah.
So if we don't add it, you know what we're seeing.
Right, and that's why it's included both in the wording and then also in the bid form, so that, you know, it is a figure that we would know upfront.
Thank you.
Is,
And-
speaking of
Go
the
ahead.
geothermal, I'm wondering if it doesn't make sense to talk to the folks that spoke, that did the write-up for the town campus project, because the reason the costs make sense was because the amount of rebates and also grants. And I'm wondering if there's just to give our commission or committee an understanding of the potential upfront reduction in costs that we could get that is out there. Maybe we invite the person to our meeting if that's possible. Because I know that our costs, we're saying it's a 50-year cost, but that's an assumption that we're not getting any grant money nor any rebates on this. And that may significantly change the payback timeframe for geothermal for this building. So it's a thought that we may want to bring up at another meeting as an agenda item, to maybe invite somebody in to talk through what they went through on the town side for the building you guys are in.
And having this, to add on to that, having this item as something on the commissioning agents as an add-on, add alternate. I don't know if you can make, not only add it as an add alternate, but have them give previous experience in it, in geothermal. It's something that they do on a regular, that they can evaluate on a regular basis, or is there an expert they're going to bring in? Because it's interesting because the dynamics or the dynamics and the economics of geothermal are in flux. So
I think there's a bit in there about them confirming things like cement used around wells and stuff like that. So there was some specific expertise
Okay.
required
okay,
of
Yeah,
the commissioning agent.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and then, that's also something that can be addressed during the vetting of the proposals when they come in, as to, how much experience, if they haven't already provided that information in the proposal, how much experience they've had with respect to geothermal systems. A lot of the commissioning agents do, deal with those now. I mean, they're prevalent enough where, the firms have familiarity with that system. But again, it's usually something that will be referenced in their proposal. If it's in the RFP, they typically will, provide information, documentation as to their experience with that component.
I just have one minor technical thing. Somewhere in the document, it does reference life safety and fire suppression systems. I don't know if you want to call that out as, say, a line item 8 on page 3, specifically life safety and fire suppression system. Or is that the intent that they would include that in their scope? The alarms, the bells.
I thought you were saying it was in there.
They mentioned fire suppression somewhere in the other document, but it's not listed on page 3 in that scope. So
Okay.
I guess my first question, is it the intent that they would commission the life safety systems, the fire suppression system and everything else? along
Yes,
with? Okay.
yeah, that would be, part of that, their responsibilities. Trying to cross-reference that.
And I had a couple of comments. This is a small one. Page 2. To perform a report on the commissioning activities utilizing reporting formats and standardized forms provided by the commissioning agent. We had a discussion about this earlier, how, form wars. And why not put in that should be QNM or designated by QNM, so there's a standard format for all people who are looking at this.
Sorry, I'm trying to find that.
It's the second paragraph from the bottom of page 2.
Oh, from,
It starts with as set forth.
oh, okay.
And I realize this is probably, boilerplate, but we had a specific discussion about this at one of our meetings.
Okay. I mean, that can be, edited.
And then again, going back to what Joe was just talking about, let's see, where is it? The systems, this is on page 3, the list of systems to be commissioned included, blah, blah, blah. Site building and site and building security isn't listed there. That, a public building, that would be important. And also with the Madison Youth and Family Services there. The second thing, another thing that might be added there is the landscaping and grounds improvements. I know that's outside of our budget, but would the commission, would it be helpful to have someone coordinate that other than, who coordinates that? I guess that's a question.
Is that, if you're talking about the landscaping?
Landscaping and
exterior of the
site
building.
improvements. If we're gonna be digging wells and or putting a new septic system, and we want to do ball fields and move the playground or whatever else we want to do with that. That would require some coordination, and it's not mentioned here anyway.
But that's not a commissioning agent responsibility. That's the area that you're referring to as far as, the ball fields or anything associated with the landscaping. That is not a commissioning agent responsibility. They're more focused on the building itself and everything that's within that shell. The exterior of the building, the landscaping is not something that a commissioning agent typically is associated with as far as overseeing.
What about when if we need to bore or set down new sewer, new piping, new sewer pipes in the ball fields?
Then, I mean, if it's associated with the geothermal or
No.
with the septic,
With the septic,
with the septic,
or
then
the
it's.
geothermal, I mean, both of them are, will do that.
Well, the geothermal would, that's associated with that at all.
Okay.
With the septic field, the commissioning agents typically don't get involved in that aspect, but.
Yes, how would you test it?
Yeah, I'm not sure how
How
you,
would you test
test
the
that.
septic field?
That's, that's exactly why we need someone.
Yeah, well, I don't think they do though.
but not a commissioning agent, not a commissioning agent.
They typically take, they do that beforehand, determine soil types. That's part of your geotechnical.
Right.
And that's what those soil samples are probably, associated with, and they're doing
So
that
the-
testing.
so
The
the-
commissioning agent needs specifications to check something against. Whether it's in the operations manual or standard or something like that.
So the inside building plumbing versus
The outside piping.
septic
Mostly
system
the-
will be separate.
I know, but the inside plumbing is useless without the outside plumbing.
That's true, but it's just if it's there, If it's someone else's responsibility, then it shouldn't be in this.
Yeah, at some
Okay,
point, you
whose
know,
responsibility is it?
That's the other question.
that falls to the.
No, that's good.
The engineers, right? They design the system, how big it needs to be based upon number of units, bathrooms, geotechnical, how much can soil absorb and hold and transfer, and how much seepage piping you have and everything else. That's the engineer. Now, if they make a mistake and it's wrong size, you can get the error of emissions or all that kind of stuff, but that's not the commission. There's no test to see, you know, you don't pressurize the septic system and see if it, you know, works. We don't go around flushing all the toilets. It's typically not done.
It's
Now,
just, if there's a problem after, then
then that's a whole nother story where you come back to, was the design right? Who got what wrong? That's where things get ugly.
And I know I'm
But
not.
it's not the commissioning agent.
And I know I do, I'm not involved with this kind of construction. But I'd rather test it and know that it works before we start flushing toilets. I don't want to find out later and then have to go back and not get the CO because the septic system is in some way, is not working properly. Someone has to test the septic system.
But-
It's not the commissioning agent, it's gotta be somebody else. It's gotta be somebody's responsibility.
But-
And I would think it looks like it falls on the commissioning agent's responsibility, but if it's not, then whose is it?
It's up to the GC to make sure it's working.
Right.
If it doesn't, you go back to the GC. But I don't know if there's a test to check if the septic system is working other than time.
Right, and if it's not correct me if these are not hooked up to sewer, this will be septic, correct?
yeah.
Correct,
that's
yes.
yours, and
Okay,
that's-
so in septic is only, I mean, having lived with one for years, it's really tested when people start using it, and I'm not sure you can truly test the overall ability until there's a lot of people in the building and using it day in and day out, I would think, as a real test. I mean, you know, you can,
Be part of the warranty portion of the program,
right,
I'm sorry.
would it be part of the warranty period?
The septic system? Yes, I mean, the entire project would be under the warranty, but the geotechnical scope that is, you know, presently underway, the soil samples that are being taken, and that will help to determine what the existing conditions are in that site, in that area where the septic is, you know, proposed to go. Again, the commissioning agent does not, you know, get involved in that aspect. I mean, that's more the engineer, and then ultimately the GC who is installing that system based on the drawings to ensure that what is being installed for the drawings is going to be functioning and working appropriately. The commissioning agent does not get involved in the septic system as far as, you know, overseeing or monitoring, you know, that installation or, you know, testing of that. There, you know, to your point, Joe, I don't think there's any way to test it outside of.
Just because we
we
don't
can
think,
verify.
just because we don't think there's a way to test it, doesn't mean there isn't a way of testing it that we don't know. And I would prefer not to jeopardize the CO based on, we think there's no way to test it.
I've never seen it hold up the seal.
Pardon?
It's not gonna hold up the seal.
Yeah, that's.
If the septic system doesn't work, it's gonna hold it, not gonna hold the CO? I would think so. It'd hold up your house
If
if you didn't have a septic system.
If it's designed, it meets certain flow and seepage based on geotechnical, construction permits get approved. Then they come out and they check it when it's built and installed, is it built to specifications? That's usually where it ends.
Okay, you said they check it. Who's they?
Usually the town that
Town.
approved comes out, the building inspector will come out and look at it, is it built to spec? Was it sized right? You know, based on town standard, geotechnical, how many fixtures you have in the building. It looks right, design looks right, construction matches the design. Fill it in and you're good to go, plain and grassy. Now, if it doesn't work, that's a different issue. That means someone made mistakes. Is that the design engineer, is
Just an engineer that will design it, then there's an installer that will.
Yep.
Put the system in, they're not typically the same people,
no, and if somebody made a mistake along the way, and it's not working,
then there's a
Then,
bunch of
yeah,
this.
that's-
going on.
It just seems, and I'll let this go after, unless somebody wants to ask me a question. It just seems odd that we hire a commissioning agent to go over all the 1 through 7 and plus systems, and not to look at the septic system by the same person using the same methods and the same standards, whatever they are.
Commissioning agent checks performance, they're not validating installation. They'll look at it when they're on site, but they're responsible checking performance and operation. There is no test to check the functioning of a septic system after it's been installed, other than time and use.
But, this doesn't work. I'm gonna hold I'm gonna have these comments.
Yes, if anything doesn't work, you go back to an ugly process of figuring out why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Was it a poor design? Was it an error of omission? Was it something this committee value engineered out? There's a lot of.
Trying to avoid that. Just
What are the monitoring systems for commercial septics typically? So you can anticipate an issue before it becomes, damage.
So I move to not value engineer the septic system. How does that sound? Seriously, I think that's one of the big ones that we don't touch.
It comes down to maintenance. I think the town requires you to pump a septic tank every 3 years, clean it out. That's when you get into maintenance. And then actually, that was one of my questions. Is there any requirement from the commissioning agent to hand over any kind of report for transfer over for maintenance and operations, or recommendations to the town facilities department?
Oh,
Or
yes.
is it-
Yeah, they'll be, creating, various reports, documentation. They'll, like I said, after, the building's substantially complete, they still come back, run testing on, mechanical systems and ensure that, the system is operating per the original design. And all that documentation is, shared and submitted to the town.
And this isn't just idle talk, by the way. There was a problem at the high school. I don't know who's been around long enough to remember that, but there was like a Z-Tech system or something like that at the high school. And they actually, I don't know if they had to close the high school or what they did, but the system that was designed to handle wastewater at the current DHH high school was found to be defective in some way. And there was a whole lot of scrambling to make it work while the building was in operation. Jane, Joan, you're shaking your head.
I remember it. I do. I remember that happening, and it's just, but that's my point was, it wasn't until we had, thousands of kids, a couple of thousand kids and teachers in that building, and started utilizing to the fullest extent, including other things that were going on. But I'm not sure whether it was a defect or there was an issue but it was resolved, if I remember correctly, fairly quickly. It was not a long drawn out process. So I'm not sure. I'll have to look back and see what happened.
It would be, so that, again, it wouldn't be the commissioning agent does that, but if you wanted to get a second engineer to look at the design, much like you get a second estimator to look at the budget, you could do that for peace of mind.
Do you want to consider that, John?
I'm
That's
not
my
making a
decision.
motion to, I'm just
No,
saying that.
neither am I. I'm asking if you want to consider it.
I don't think it's necessary.
I mean, that's up to the committee if you want to look at, bringing in a second engineer to assess that, but, I personally don't think that would be necessary. I don't, I have to have faith in the architect and their engineer to, design a system that's going to be adequate and satisfy the needs of the building.
And make sure that,
No, I'll just say, bringing in another engineer to sort of second guess or question that, I don't think that, doesn't score any points with the.
and you just make sure your contract language is such that there's recourse for improper design or errors of omission, things like that.
Makes sense. Unrelated point, we talked a little bit about the operation of the building. Who does is there an educational component to the town?
They hand over, right?
Yeah,
That's
like
where everything gets messed up.
this is how things actually work here, and here are the levers to pull and the knobs to
Oh,
twist.
yes, there's O&M manuals, there's,
Is
training.
that part of commissioning or is that part of the GC's responsibilities to the town?
Little both. It's mostly the GC that becomes responsible for, training. The turnover of that package, the manuals, specifications, et cetera. Commissioning agent, can be part of that process certainly, but that pretty much falls under the, GC's, responsibilities as the contract.
Is it included in this RFP?
In this, no.
It's their responsibility, sure.
Well, it's not the commissioning.
It's not the commissioning agent's responsibility to
Hand over the building.
hand over those
Okay,
those
so
documents.
they don't, but you said that fishing agent assists.
Well, they can assist with some of that input or guidance, but ultimately the general contractor, CM, is the one that's responsible for turning over that documentation, to the owner on a gradual basis. If it's something that's phased, I mean, in this case, it's not, so it would be something that would be done, at the end of the project. The training would be performed by the installers. They would provide O&M manuals. All that documentation gets turned over as part of the closeout package. And that needs to be addressed and completed before any, final payments are made to the contractor.
One more question.
Yeah.
It talks a lot about energy management systems. Are you using that term the same as building management systems? So when I say BMS or building management system, I'm thinking about all your alarms, all your systems, your temperature, and everything tied into one system so that it's centralized control. I don't know if the town goes that route. I don't know if we were going that route. Was that in the design or?
Yeah, I don't know, Carolina, if you can weigh in on that. I had Tom review this already,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming that, there were no,
It's in line
concerns
with
from
how
this
the town
standpoint.
run their buildings. I guess that's the way.
I'm sorry?
I guess it's then, if Tom reviewed it, it's in line with how the town
Oh.
chooses to operate their buildings.
Yes, I
I guess that's the right
believe so.
question.
Yeah, okay.
So Tom did review it?
Yes. Yeah.
John, there were some other things that were highlighted. And I think it's the dates.
I think the only other thing highlighted are dates, just to remind myself, if, depending on, if this is approved tonight, then, those dates would remain as is. If it's something that gets deferred, then that's just a reminder to myself that I've got to, tweak those dates accordingly, once it is something that is approved to, be posted.
Do I have a motion to approve the Town of Madison request for qualifications proposal for commissioning agent as amended by our conversations and with any necessary amendments to the date, the dates should it not go through the town as quickly as we might expect.
Move to proceed with posting.
Second,
Any other discussion? In favor? Aye.
aye.
Unanimous.
The calendar.
The calendar. If you have a calendar, please get it out so that we'll look at some of the estimate deadlines and see if we need to make adjustments.
For some reason, I still have an automated one for December 26th, believe it or not, is still in my calendar. And this was, I think, it's not something that I did, so. So it's the 19th is the next meeting?
I think this is the next.
You have to go to the 26th.
The 19th is the next scheduled meeting.
Right,
Based on our actions tonight and the fact that the DD estimates aren't going to be ready till the 22nd, I don't know if there's a reason for the meeting on the 19th.
I'll move to cancel. Well, why don't we do a whole discussion and we can do all of them at once? Yeah.
So the sense of the committee is we would cancel the meeting on the 19th.
Okay. I'll take notes on the changes so that I'll do the motion, okay?
Okay. The DD, again, the DD estimates are due the 22nd of December. And then the actual estimates will be ready on the 16th. John or Carolina, does the committee have any responsibility with the first DD estimates? They'll be ready on the 22nd. What is our responsibility?
You're saying the 22nd
Of
January?
the 22nd of December.
December, that's not the estimates, that's the documentation for the estimation
Okay.
process, just to
Okay.
clarify.
Take that back. I do
So-
have it here as the design documents. But I wrote in my own handwriting estimates, so that was a mistake. I'll cross that out. Thank you, John. What do we have any responsibility when the design documents are completed before we go to the next step?
Your involvement will be after the reconciliation process. There is nothing that the building committee needs to do upon the issuance of the documents on the 22nd, because those are going to the two estimators. They will take a couple weeks to put their costs together. And then once those numbers come in, those, depending on the timing, those can be shared, with the committee. And then following the reconciliation meeting, that would ultimately be the time where that those results are shared, and the next required input and feedback from the committee comes into play to ultimately proceed to the construction document phase.
So the reconciled estimates for my last minutes aren't due till the 12th of February. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, I can't log in on my computer here to look at the schedule, but if that's what you have on the milestone, is that what you're looking at, Joe?
No, I looked at our last, I think that's what.
That sounds about right.
I think that was our last meeting. Actually, they came from my handwritten notes of our last meeting. So I'm trying to see if they're in here. Yeah, they are on their old business from the notes of the last meeting. Number 12, design documents will be ready on 12/22. Sent to estimator. Estimates are due 1/16, with the intent that committee can reconcile estimates on 2/12. It's on the second page of the of the minutes.
Reviewing on 2/12.
What are we reviewing on 2/12?
For the 8th.
We have a meeting.
We have a meeting, our meetings are scheduled on the 19th, which said we would cancel. Looks like we would cancel. The 8th of January, which is before the actual estimates are done, and certainly long before the reconciled estimates are done. We have another meeting on the 23rd, which would allow us to look at unreconciled estimates. And then we have a meeting on 2/12, which that sounds like a big one. We need to keep that one. Because that's the date that the reconciled estimates would be ready.
When is the commissioning agents RFPs coming in?
Good question.
Based on the dates on the RFP, the proposals are due January 4th.
So we could do the commissioning agent review on the 8th.
Yep.
Jean, can you let Jacqueline know that for some reason my calendar killed off a bunch of the meetings? If she could resend those to me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, for some reason I don't have any of the 2024 meetings.
Yeah, I don't have, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just me.
Okay, so. We
I
only do
think, I think
2023.
I put some in myself, so I don't have them in Jacqueline either. I did.
I don't think the 2024 ones have been loaded.
Well, they have to be loaded soon because we did this so that, I don't know, we had to meet some deadline for freedom of information, so.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we created the agenda, but I don't think that, an invite.
I thought we approved, didn't we approve it either a meeting ago or last meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were approved.
We approved in November.
Okay. I think it's just a matter of getting it in the system now. Or-
No, it'll be me.
Jeannie, could you please, have Jacqueline do that, or if you're capable of doing that, if it's your responsibility, you do it, please.
So, but then, and then I thought. Okay, so. So if we do the commissioning agents on the 8th, that still coincides and it should be very focused meeting, correct? That would be pretty good. Or do we need to have them in, or we could skip the 8th and just join in with Tuesday, the 23rd?
There's the Tuesday, the 23rd doesn't have a reason to be reason for a meeting yet.
Okay,
It was Tuesday, the 12th, when the reconciled cost estimates were in. And so the question I had, do we have a need to see the unreconciled estimates on the 6th, that would be ready on the 16th? Is there a reason to review those, and we could review them on the 23rd if there was a reason, or if there's absolutely no reason to do it? We could skip that. We could skip that meeting or look to see if there's a reason to have that meeting for some other another responsibility.
So you're, just so I'm clear, so you're talking the January 16th meeting?
There's a meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry,
There's no meeting on
no,
January
that's
16th.
January 16th.
yeah, January 16th is where you've got the DD estimates due from QA&M and third-party estimators. So the estimates are due, not necessarily a reconciliation of those estimates, correct?
We get it.
At least that's what I have for a milestone schedule, unless it got bumped. That was,
It seems like maybe just send out the reconciled estimates, but
That's what it's.
the most valuable piece to me would be, once they sit down and compare notes and
Back and
say,
forth,
"Oh,
yes.
that's bad," that the reconciled ones, we really don't need to meet them 23rd, it seems like.
That's sort of, why don't, if we take that suggestion, we would cancel the meeting on the 23rd, but we would expect at or around the 16th to be able to view the actual estimates before reconciliation.
Yes, I mean, I can certainly share those with the committee and, send you that document from the two estimators.
It actually would be more valuable if we had a day or two to look at it before the meeting. So is there any chance that they can pull that forward to the 10th maybe?
Although our meeting was,
The
meeting
meeting
was
was
the
the
23rd.
23rd.
The meeting
Oh, I
is-
thought it was 2/12.
No, we're in January. We're looking at.
We're still
Yeah,
talking.
but there's no reason to have it because there's no reconciled. And the reconciled come out the same day as our next scheduled meeting,
Right. Oh, I
which
see.
is the 12th.
I see.
So if we could get those reconciled numbers a day or two before the meeting, it would be more valuable.
Right, thinking of the Friday.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
can we move that milestone for reconciled estimates from the 12th to the 10th?
The 9th is the Friday.
Oh,
9th is the Friday. Well, what I can do is the week of the 5th, the week of February 5th.
Yeah.
Do the reconciliation meeting so that those numbers are known and can be shared at the meeting on the 12th.
Well, the idea, though, that I think is that if we could get them before the 12th, that would be.
To review in advance.
Oh, no, yes, no, that's what I'm saying. If the meeting's held, like, just say the Wednesday, the 7th or the 8th, then that would reconcile those numbers, so then those can be sent out on the 8th or the 9th in advance of the meeting on the 12th.
That would be swell.
That'd be excellent.
Yes.
yes.
But then we'll get back to the question of the meeting on the 23rd. And is there any value in the committee seeing the actual estimates? Which will be ready on the 16th, and that would be sort of a preview of what we might see. Well, it's just,
Or would it be confusing?
oh, would it be confusing? Yeah, I don't.
And agenda inducing.
Yeah, and I can send them, and if you want to look at them, great, and if you don't, you don't have to look at them. It's,
Okay.
You know,
I'd
another
rather
way to
wait
approach it.
Until,
Okay, so we, at this point, there's no reason for a meeting on the 23rd of January.
Sounds like,
okay,
So,
We're just waiting, right?
we're just, yeah, sounds like we're waiting.
the only reason and I'll walk back that comment. The only reason to, no, forget it. I was thinking we should be maybe looking ahead for a informational meeting, but until we have some data, what the reconciled numbers, there's really no point in trying to.
You're
We
right.
might need to be before we.
Yes. But I'm sure that we need to skip, there are deadlines for scheduling an informational meeting.
Do we want to have an informational meeting before we do value engineering?
Well, that's,
what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that maybe some input from the town before we start making decisions on what we might cut out is a good idea. Rather than going to the people of the town and saying, here's what we decided to cut out. Granted, building team did great surveys, that's good information, but make sure it's still valid. I don't know, I don't actually, I
Yeah,
don't know.
There's pros and cons to both, I see, because that can also sow confusion, right? You showed us something, we thought that's what we were getting, right?
It's with the messaging, you could deliver it. Here's where the number, here's what we thought it would cost. Here's what it's actually gonna cost. Here's what we have. We can't do all of this. Here's what we're thinking about cutting out. I don't know. I see value in both sides.
what I'll do is, I'll find out what the notification, or maybe you know. What's the notification period for an informational meeting?
It's not long.
Oh, okay, it's not 6 weeks or anything like that.
If I could respond to your comment, I think we are ready for an informational meeting when we can frame it as a progress report. It's not a question of what's in or what's out. It's, here's where we are at this point. I think until we have some numbers, I think it's very hard to know where we are. John, maybe.
Yeah, I know, I agree. Yeah, it's gonna be tough to try to
So-
explain or justify things without knowing some of the costs.
So an informational meeting can be scheduled, I think, say within 2 weeks. I don't know
Okay.
what the exact time frame is. It can go quickly.
Okay,
It's more a question of finding space than anything else. And I don't think we know what to say to the public at this moment because we haven't got our numbers yet. So
I was just wondering if it was a long notification
No.
period. But if it's not, if it's just a couple of weeks, we can move down the path,
yes,
knowing that this is something we have to schedule, but not picking a date yet.
It sounds like maybe something.
just to make sure everybody's
Yeah.
clear, an informational session is not a town meeting with capital letters. That's a very special process in which we call the voters in to vote on something. An informational meeting is, as I'm describing it, it's just a progress report. Here's where we are, here's what we know, here's what we don't know yet. And so, Joe, that can really be called at any time.
Okay,
My 2 cents is, this isn't the right time to call it.
no,
No,
it's not.
certainly not. But
No, it's
certainly,
not, but, you know, it's plan ahead now, that's the,
I think once we have the estimates and they're reconciled, we should think about when.
Right.
That's
So the question becomes, do you want to have it in February? Do you want to have it in March? Or do you want to have it in April? Is really those are the timeframes. We're going to have the information at the beginning or mid-February. We could try to have an informational session at the end of February. You could do it in March. So no matter which way we do it, I think it's important for us to, like I said, you know, like we have talked about, this is what was originally estimated. That same way of estimating would now be this dollar figure. And then here's what we've come back with detailed estimates and where we really got into the numbers. And here are some of the thoughts. On where we're moving, how we could move forward.
Scenario approach.
And we don't want the town, we don't want to go have, you know, the town design the building. I mean, that's, you know, that's our job to keep the eye on that, and it's the architects and Collier's job to actually do that. But what's in and what's out is maybe a good way to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, we know that we have certain absolute needs that have to be done. And then those are the things, like, you know, we've talked about the mechanics and ceiling and everything else. Then we need to say, okay, this is what we've got left. Where's the best use of that budget? And that is something that the town could weigh in on. You know, we want public information sessions. We want to keep this as positive and, you know, as possible.
I do think we have a lot of input already from the advisory committee on those priorities that we could make use of. So based on those priorities that were listed out from that survey result, this is how far we can get down the list, and this is how much will get left out.
And by that time, we'll also be able to explain, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Ann and I are meeting next week to talk about the capability of how the private sector can add to the total in the budget. So the total for the budget of the project without adding to the cost of the taxpayers, because this is whoever wants to donate can donate. It's not going to up the amount of money we're going out to bond for. So those are some information we'll be able to bring to the public as well. So if there's people who are really psyched about doing something, we can explain how that can be done as well.
So can we add to the agenda for when we have the reconciled estimates? Just a discussion around that public meeting, information meeting.
And public donations too.
Public donations.
Mhm.
So I think to your point, it would be probably good to have the advisory committee participate in some capacity to share those survey results.
And
As a reminder.
and not just the results, but, you know, what the feelings and the discussion that was held in the
Yeah.
design committee that go behind the numbers.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think if I've been keeping score, 19th is canceled. December 19th is meeting is canceled. The meeting on the 8th will be a general meeting, but it will specifically address the
Commissioning.
commissioning, that's what I was looking for, the commissioning agent. The meeting on the 23rd does not seem to have a reason to exist at the moment, so I think that's in the cancel territory. The 12th is the meeting that we're going to get the reconciled estimates of 12th of February. And we are requesting that we actually get the information before our meeting on the 12th.
Mhm. And we're also going to get the unreconciled during that, where it's just being sent to the committee as well.
Right, and the unreconciled will be somewhere around somewhere after the 16th of January.
Correct.
And then we have a meeting on the 24th. When I think that's when we're going to have to start. We're either going to be looking at how we do a public meeting, or when we do a public meeting, or if we're going to do value engineering, or it'll give us a chance to look at the numbers.
The 24th of February, the 27th.
I'm sorry, it's the 27th. I have my.
I'm wondering if we should talk about the public information session on the 12th or not. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be out of town for the month of March. So I'll be remoting in if we're doing that, and I may be on a beach at that point. So sorry, guys. Do it in March.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
I'd rather give us, I'd rather take the time, the 2 weeks between the 12th and 27th to digest what we've seen, we've heard, and before we come up with a future plan. Because a public meeting may just be one of many future plans that we have, that we want to consider.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to cancel the December 19th and the December 23rd meeting, January 23rd, December 19th, 2023, January 23rd, 2024 meetings.
Second,
Any further discussion?
No, but we're just worried about through the end of February, and we'll worry about
Right,
the other one that.
yes.
Mhm.
We'll have, we'll get the information we need on the 12th of February. We'll have 2 weeks to digest it and discuss it on the 27th. And then that's what, the 27th will be like a look forward. Okay, all in favor of Joan's motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Thank you.
And we lost our public. That was online.
Couldn't bear it.
Any other comments? Al? Scott? Austin? Thanks. Well, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good holiday.